What's up, guys? Exciting one today. We're looking at TwinTube from Plugin Alliance. Probably a plugin over the past few years that I've used a large amount of times. It's a small plugin, but it does incredible things. Straightforward TwinTube. It is based off of analog tube, saturation, and harmonics that we put together. It's really, really cool, easy to use. I'm gonna today show it being used on a vocal, specifically "Is It Over," a record I worked on with Shy Martin and Disco Fries years ago. The session I'm going to show today is nothing we showed online or have spoken about much. I'm going to show how the project started, the bass piano of just, stripped. There's nothing going on but that and the vocal. It's basically the first session of how this record came to life. So I'm excited to show that to you guys here today in Plugin Sessions. Let's get started. You guys can see here on the screen, again, pretty straightforward session. I'm going to play out the record just for any of you guys that haven't heard it, just so we can get used to it. And I'm going to talk about this plugin and how I use it on a sum group of all the vocals. And you'll hear a big difference here later in the demonstration. So let's hear the record first.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky, united, you and I. Is it over now? Is it over? Was that the final touch? Is this the end of us? If it is, I'm glad you held me close, for waking up and being only yours. Yes, for a while. If it's over, please tell me one more time that you're no longer mine. Is it over now? Over. Is it over now? Over. Is it over now?
So you guys, I'll stop there and not play through the whole track. This is probably one of my favorite records that I was a part of, working with Shy Martin. Probably one of the best experiences. She's one of the biggest vocalists and songwriters I've ever worked with. And then working with the Disco Fries, my homies, they're really, really good producers. So I knew when I was working on this record, I wanted to take it to the next level and work with someone like the Disco Fries. So you guys can hear the end result on Spotify or whatever platform you want. It's been out for a few years. But let's get to the plugin here today. So as you guys heard the vocals, I put them all into one sum group just for the demonstration today. Sometimes I'll do this TwinTube individually because you want to get different results, different saturation, etc. But for today, I want to show how I use this on Shy Martin specifically to just give a little bit of warmth. I remember years ago working on this record, when I first got the stems, her microphone set up, the studio she's in, everything was perfect. Like, she has a warm tone to her voice already. I didn't want to damage that. I didn't want to add too much, but when I experimented with adding a few things to her voice, I found the TwinTube was that little 5% difference that made that end result that much better. So let's fire up the plugin, and it's from Plugin Alliance, SPL. Again, it's modeled after analog. So here's your plugin. Anyone that hasn't used it, guys, I'm hoping at the end of this video this will really push you to try it out. I think it's a remarkable plugin for anything. I even recommend you guys try it on guitars, real instrument sounds. Again, today we're just going to look at the vocal. So let's hear her vocal without it.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky, united, you and I. Is it over?
So already warm, right? I didn't want to overdo it. So let's first talk about the interface, guys, before we get tweaking. On your right here is going to be your control, your overall output, your bypass. You guys can turn the power off. The real cool thing about this plugin is it has 4 different things you can lock in. Essentially 4 presets you can make at any time. So if I'm tweaking something, that'll be on D. When I go over here to B, I can do a different one, and I can go back and forth. You guys can see that changing. So that's, you could call it bass. Just 3 or 4 different ways to save something like that is really a big time saver. So that's really your right side here. Again, your output. Now switching over to the main side, you guys have your harmonics and you have your saturation. So straightforward. 2 different tubes that are going to be combined. You can use one if you want, or use both together, which is essentially what I do a lot of the times. In the middle, guys, they have this filtering. You guys can actually see here the actual specifics of their filtering. There's 4 different modes you can see in the 10, the 6, the 3, the 2,000 hertz. You can go through all of those, the filtering modes, if you want to just highlight one specific section of the frequency range to push harmonics, to push saturation. Probably 9 out of 10 times for me, I like having both of these on and pushing the overall signal that I'm working with. That's just a personal preference for me. I find that to have the best results, but it's there if you guys want it. And underneath that, guys, simple bypass of if you don't want harmonics on, vice versa, if you don't want saturation on, you can dial in both if you want to just solo them instead of both together. And then lastly, guys, your saturation knob down here. Pretty straightforward plugin. As you guys have seen so far in the series here that I've done, I don't or haven't been looking into incredibly in-depth plugins because I want you guys to think outside the box of simple is best. Sometimes these free plugins, sometimes these simple laid out plugins are the best. They really are. All right, enough talking. Let's get right to the vocal. I want you guys to hear the difference.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky, united you and I. Is it over now? Is it over?
So guys, take note the signal. They have that. That just means it's basically getting fed through the input. In other words, it's on a channel. So that signal will just tell you. Watch out for the overload. You guys will notice that you're going to have to stage your your tracks individually going into this, because you'll notice you're going to get a lot of overload if your tracks are super hot, for example.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky, united.
See how that's coming in? That's overload. So we need to dial that back, because you can't have both going on. If you have an overload signal and then you're pushing harmonics, then you're pushing saturation, you will have a terrible sound. Don't really do that. So lay off the volume here a bit. We're gonna bring everything back here in the mixer now.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky, united you and I. Is it over now? Is it over?
All right, I want you guys to hear the cool distortion that the saturation brings. Sometimes I'll recommend put the TwinTube on a bus, a send, so you can send a little amount of this distortion that you're going to get, because sometimes on the full track it's not really what you're looking for. If you're looking for a character type distortion, use a send knob, so you send a little bit of that distortion while you're still having the clean original signal. So listen to this saturation, how it kind of crunches the vocal a bit.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky, united you and...
So that obviously isn't what you would want on the lead vocal, but that sounds pretty cool. So something like that I will use as a send. I'll just grab that little bit. I'll have it incredibly distorted and saturated like that, but not as the main signal. I would rather put that to another bus channel and send a certain amount of that.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky.
All right, let's push the harmonics up pretty high so you guys can hear when you're kind of pushing that too much. I'm gonna bring the output down.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky, united you and I. Is it over now? Is it over? Was that the final touch? Is this the end of us?
Okay, let's now hear it with more layers coming in, because that's just the lead verse that starts. Let's hear a little bit more going on to the next one.
If it is, I'm glad you held me close, for waking up and being only yours. Yes, for a while. If it's over, please tell me one more time.
It's an incredible difference, night and day, guys, but the harmonics of her voice are so important to the overall record, to the feel. This is why I did this stage of the processing out of the main session, the way beginning of when we were looking at just working around a piano, just working around a bass. That's how Shy Martin and her camp started the record. So that was a perfect spot for me to see, okay, let me bring Shy's voice a bit to another level with a little bit of processing, a little bit of harmonics, because again, her voice is so nice that it doesn't need to be overly treated, if that makes sense.
Is it over? At least we saw the sky, united you and I. Is it over now? Is it over?
Okay, let's get to the chorus here and let's see. I'm going to bring the harmonics down a touch. We're getting a tiny bit of overload. It's not always a terrible thing if you guys get stuff too overloaded. It's there to tell you that the signal is hot, but as you guys know, I like breaking the rules. So sometimes that really kind of crunchy hot signal can be okay. At the end of the day, there's no right or wrong to music production.
Is it over now? Over. Is it over now? Over. Is it over now? Over.
Okay, let's do it without it.
Is it over now? Over. Is it over now?
I mean, if you ask me, guys, the vocal, and this is just mix-wise, sounds a little hidden. It sounds not dull from Shy, it sounds dull from not having the harmonics come out, from not having a bit of saturation. And that's the night and day difference, guys, that does it for me in records. And you'll notice if you try this on a guitar as another example, you're going to see the guitar sounds great when you first record it in, but then when you hear another take with this on, you guys are going to be probably wanting to do it with this every single time. At least I have found myself using this plugin on almost any type of live instrument that I bring in.
If it is, I'm glad you held me close, for waking up and being only yours. Yes, for a while. If it's over, please tell me one more time.
Okay, let's do one without harmonics and just saturation.
If it is, I'm glad you held me close, for waking up and being only yours.
So you can hear it starting to distort a bit. We don't want that. We don't want to damage Shy's voice at all.
If it is, I'm glad you held me close, for waking up and being only yours. Yes, for a while.
But saturation is very minimal, and that's a good thing. You don't want to oversaturate sounds. I like how minimal that changes. That's why sometimes I'll crank the saturation a good amount, or vice versa, have this really low and then crank the harmonics. That's kind of a good way to have the best of both worlds. If you're cranking both and it's on the lead vocal, I can almost guarantee you're not going to have the results you want. You need to be very, very selective with how far you push these parameters, specifically on a vocal.
If it is, I'm glad you held me close, for waking up and being only yours. Yes, for a while. If it's over, please tell me one more time that you're no longer mine. Is it over?
And you guys take note, there might be some producers watching. Hey man, check your peak level. Yeah, I know. But in this example, I'm not looking at that right now. This sound is going and breaching that peak level because I'm pushing the SPL. Vice versa, what I would do is bring all the tracks down and I would make a happy medium mix-wise. I'm not looking at that right now, so those producers sniping me on that one, I get it. Trust me, I'm all for having the levels perfectly right at the end. But today's example, I just wanted to show pushing this as far as we can. But guys, that's really it for today's episode. Plugin Alliance, it's the SPL TwinTube. Feel free to get on their website. They've got a bunch of other plugins that I'm definitely going to have later down the road in the series. I love everything they put out. Again, experiment with it. Try it on different stuff besides vocals, but that's what I wanted to show today, and I love it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.
Is it over?